Buona tarda.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kim Faura. I'm the General Director of Telefónica for the Mediterranean area, including Catalonia, Valencia, Baleares, Murcia. And I would like to thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mr. Chace. Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to have you here. You are in the Movistar Center. This building was built in 1926. And we had here these ladies that were plugging in the Telefónica. A lo largo del tiempo este edificio pues ha servido para presentar distintas innovaciones que
This
hemos puesto al alcance.
building has been used to present different innovations that we have made available to people. And I was telling Mr. Chace that, well, it was only women who were doing who were working as switchboard operators. And, well, nowadays we are presenting something as different to that as artificial intelligence. I would like to thank the Grupo Godó and LaVanguardia group, as well as Carlos, who's here, Pere Guardiola, General Director, Enrique Sierra, who's the Deputy Director, and I would like to welcome them to this home. It's your home, and this is, well, the forum to share some thoughts about artificial intelligence that we all believe is the technology of the future. But it's more the technology of the present rather than of the future. So, and we will talk about the future, good opportunities of artificial intelligence. Mr. Chace said that he is extremely positive and optimistic about everything, so he will bring all the positive things about artificial intelligence. And we also have here Mr. Pablo Rodriguez. He's a friend and a colleague at Telefónica. He is in charge of scientific research. He is in charge of disruptive projects within Telefónica. And a few months ago, we presented here a book on artificial intelligence that he wrote. Well, Calum is beating you because he's written 3 already. So, as you know, for Telefónica, artificial intelligence is extremely relevant. Telefónica is often seen as, the copper wire, and then the fiber optics. And Pablo Rodriguez, among many others, is working on projects that go well above this Telefónica infrastructure. We have recently launched in 6 countries in the world, Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Germany, the UK, and Spain, a project called Aura. It's like my surname, but without the F. It's the digital assistance with artificial intelligence, which transforms how our clients are relating to Telefónica and how they manage their digital lives with the company. And this is just a mere example of the many possibilities of having a positive impact for society, something that we would like to exploit together. And I have no doubt that AI will improve key aspects of people's private lives and the lives of businesses and also public management. There are very good examples in the field of business, also in medical diagnosis, sometimes even going beyond what we believe is ethics, self-driving vehicles, voice recognition, that's text translation, the customization of products, and also management of climate change and natural disasters, among other things. This is the beginning of this change. It's one step further in our commitment towards developing products and services that will turn the world into a better place. Because that's what technology is all about. We intend to have technology creating a more inclusive society, offering more opportunities for everyone. And we at Telefónica firmly believe that AI can answer to these goals. It is essential to make an exercise of responsibility to understand the impact of each new technology to avoid unfair or discriminatory results. And that's why sessions such as today's are so important. Mr. Chace, Pablo, and Enrique will be helping us understand and also draw the outskirts of a reality that will shape our future. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to those who are most knowledgeable about this. I don't know who speaks first. Is it Pablo? Enrique? Pablo? Apparently, Pablo is first. Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome you all.
Welcome, welcome to Barcelona, and welcome to this space. On an evening where we're going to talk about probably the most exciting topic that we have ahead of us. Certainly at the beginning of a journey, where we probably have more questions than answers, and hopefully it will be with events like this and discussions like the topics that the ones you're going to bring later that will elevate a little bit the level of consciousness of what's coming, understand the opportunities, but also the risk, and hopefully make the right decisions for us as humans. I'm Pablo Rodriguez. I'm the CEO of Telefónica Alpha. It's our long-term innovation unit. We go after things that we call moonshots, I guess, things that are so hard as going to the moon, trying to take a risk and invent the future of Telefónica by doing projects that require deep technology breakthroughs and that will hopefully impact the life of people in a positive way. And in that way, artificial intelligence, and that is the book that Kim referred to before, I see also that it can have a very positive impact in our society. And it's already here with us into our day-to-day. From the time we get up to the time that we go to sleep, artificial intelligence is here, helping us find new books to buy, new movies to watch, taking us the shortest path from one part of the city to another part of the city, adjusting the temperature at home, or sorting the sort of post that we see when we go on social media and what is more relevant to us. How did we get here? We got here through a very accelerated path of commoditization of many different things. The cost of bandwidth over the last years has rapidly and dramatically come down. That's the first curve up there, here on the left. The cost of computing has followed a very similar trend, coming rapidly down very quickly. The cost of storage, which is down here on the left, followed a similar path. And the cost of launching a startup, and therefore experimenting and trying things out, has also come down very quickly. What all this means is that all these things that had a lot of value, their value is moving to zero. And if the value of all these things move to zero, the value moves to data. It moves to a world where data becomes the new asset, and that data that you can massage, that you can understand, get new insights through algorithms, which are the recipes that artificial intelligence uses to extract value out of that data. And this is affecting all the industries. I think Kim touched upon it. It's affecting our own industry, the telecommunication industry, on how to deploy better and faster networks and do it in a more automatic way, how to put more artificial intelligence in the home so it helps you have a better experience, so it's a companion for you. It's helping banks and the finance industry to be able to give access to credit to people that don't have credit history, and being able to help them on the journey to access to capital where they may have no other prior history. It's helping design better cities, understand the journey that tourists can do in a city and give them a better experience. During outbreaks, aggregating that data and understanding where pandemias are moving and how to deploy security forces and health personnel to anticipate and predict what's going to happen, or health, and being able to use your latest DNA records, all the data that is coming and available through wearables, and put it in one place and be able to do personalized medicine and help you anticipate potential problems that may become serious illness in the future. This doesn't come without trouble, without warnings. Like every technology has its positive side and its dark side, and I think that's the one that we need to talk about. We need to be aware and try to come up with good solutions. Discussions around who owns your data. Is there value in your data or not? Are these algorithms making decisions for us, and how are they taking into account everybody as opposed to a few? Are they biased by the data that they consume? Could they become racist? Could they bias your view of the world? How do you trust them? How does a doctor, in face of algorithm, make a decision and that goes against the recommendation of the algorithm to operate or not operate somebody? How does a judge make a decision in the face of an AI algorithm? We are developing a new way of relating to machines and going up much higher into the layer of discussion than the one we're used to. We're moving beyond machines doing basic things for us to actually having empathy and being able to help us on these very important life or death, sometimes, discussions. One of the tremendous topics that could get impacted through this journey is that of work, the future of work. Another one could be, are machines ever going to become conscious? Are we going to go over the singularity, tipping point? It all sounds like science fiction, but Calum Chace has been living and breathing this for quite some time now. Philosopher from Oxford, then working in the corporate world, reading, engaging with this community for many years, and making us think, dream about what could happen, and bringing a debate on top of the table that I think it's going to be super interesting, and I look forward to your talk. So welcome, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Pablo, and thank you to Telefonica and LaVanguardia for making this great event possible, because it gives me the opportunity to congratulate you all. Congratulations. You have all chosen to be born at the most interesting, the most important, and the most exciting time in the whole of human history. So well done. That was a really good choice. I say that because this is the century of two singularities, and I'm going to spend the next 40 minutes explaining what I mean by that. And here's my little robot that's going to make sure I don't go over time. I've been thinking about this for a very long time. The first time I wrote about technological unemployment was in 1980. I've admitted it was my college newspaper. But in 2012, I stopped being a businessman. After a 30-year career, I became a full-time writer and speaker about artificial intelligence, and I've written 4 or 5 books since then, 2 of them on each of the 2 singularities that I'm going to talk about. So I use them as the signposts so you know where we are. Surviving AI, the blue one, is about the technological singularity, which is superintelligence, and the pink one, the economic singularity, is about automation. I want to make 3 claims, and I hope I'll persuade you that these are all true. The first claim is that our technology, and therefore we, are on an exponential growth curve. And that is tremendously important. You need to bear this in mind. We all know we're on an exponential growth curve, but we all forget it. We need to bear this in mind if we want to understand what's going to happen in the future. The second claim is that this progress can make our world, and the world of our children and our grandchildren, absolutely wonderful. Wonderful almost beyond imagination. But it raises challenges. We have to meet those challenges. So why do I use this word singularity? It has a bad reputation in some quarters, but I think it's a really good word for the changes that are coming. It's from maths and physics, and it means a point in a process where a variable becomes infinite. Classic example is a black hole. At the center of a black hole the gravitational field becomes infinite. And what happens then is that the laws of physics just stop working. And there's an event horizon, so it's really hard to see what comes next. So that's a very good metaphor for the changes that are coming. They are much bigger than disruption. They're much bigger than revolution. They're the biggest kind of changes that you can have. And it's very hard to see what will come after them. The technology which is going to generate these singularities is, of course, artificial intelligence, which is an overnight sensation which has been 60-odd years in the making. It was started in 1956 by these gentlemen. And this is a picture of them celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Dartmouth conference at which they got the science of artificial intelligence going. Sadly, they were not able to celebrate the 60th anniversary a couple of years ago because they have all succumbed to a bug in human software, which we call death, and which we should do much more about, and I'll come back to that. We know that artificial intelligence is our most powerful technology because it has beaten us. In fact, it has thrashed us at 4 contests, which we regard as being very challenging. The first is chess. Back in 1997, the best ever human player of chess, called Garry Kasparov, was beaten by an IBM system called Deep Blue. He thought IBM had cheated, and he was probably right. So he was grumpy. But now he's much more cheerful, and he goes around the world telling us how we can live happily with computers. Then in 2011, another IBM system called Watson beat the best human players of an American TV quiz show called Jeopardy! And this time IBM probably did not cheat. Then in 2016, a really remarkable achievement, a group of computer scientists in North London called DeepMind, owned by Google, developed a system called AlphaGo, which beat the best human player of a game of Go. In chess, there are 8 spaces on each side. In Go, there are 19. It's a much, much more complicated game. And interestingly, Go is the game which Chinese military strategists are trained on. So this event, when computers mastered Go, was the Sputnik moment for China. It got China very, very interested in AI, and we'll come back to that. Then last year, a system developed in Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh beat some of the best human players of poker. Now, in poker, humans cheat and they lie. So the computer had to work out when they were cheating and lying, and it had to do a bit of cheating and lying itself. So that's not what you would expect. The last 2 games, Go and poker, are different. The AI systems that won these competitions are different from the first 2 because they benefited from the Big Bang that happened in AI in 2012. In 2012, a British computer scientist called Geoff Hinton got a fairly well-established branch of statistics called machine learning. He figured out how to apply it to AI. And a subset of machine learning is deep learning, which is, in a sense, a rebranding of neural networks, is what is causing all the excitement. It's what's caused all the great, powerful new developments in AI. Since the Big Bang in 2012, AI now works, in the sense that it makes a lot of money. It did not do that before 2012. So we now have machines which, in some limited respects, are a bit like human brains. If you want a definition of artificial intelligence, the quick one is, it is goal-directed adaptive behavior. An AI, an intelligent system, an intelligent entity, is an agent which has a purpose, it has a goal, and it learns as it pursues that goal, and it changes its behavior. So that's a potted definition of intelligence and indeed of artificial intelligence. So we now have very powerful machines which are a little bit like human brains. They are not conscious, and they are nowhere near as powerful as your brains. These are narrow artificial intelligences. They can be very, very good at playing chess, but they can't tie their shoelaces. They could not get themselves in this room, and they don't even know that they're playing chess. So they're artificial narrow intelligences. Despite those limitations, they can do some very impressive things. So we have machines now which can recognize faces better than you can. And that's quite a surprise, because facial recognition is a human superpower. They can recognize voices almost better than you can. That is a hurdle that they're going to surpass fairly soon. And they're getting much better at natural language processing, which is when you take in information expressed in natural language, you process it, and then you give an answer back in natural language. They are catching up with us in those respects. This is not easy. This is hard to do. And as a result, there's a joke in Silicon Valley that machine learning, and deep learning in particular, is a bit like teenage sex. Everybody talks about it, but very few people are doing it successfully. That will change. Now, the thing which has made all of this possible is the phenomenal growth in compute power. You probably know that the smartphone in your pocket has more compute power than NASA had when they sent Neil Armstrong to the moon. That's out of date. A good toaster now has more compute power than NASA had when they sent Neil Armstrong to the moon, which goes to show how very brave Neil Armstrong was. The other thing that you need to power deep learning and to power these new forms of AI is lots and lots of data. You need tsunamis of data. It's been said that 90% of all the data we have today was generated in the last 2 years. And the same will be true next year, and the same will be true the year after. That figure is apparently from IBM, so it's probably a bit fudged, but more or less accurate. And because of these enormous changes, just in the next few years, some really remarkable things are going to happen. Firstly, you're going to have conversations with your smartphone. Now, that may sound daft, because at the moment, if you ask Alexa or Siri or Cortana or whatever Google is calling theirs today, a question, you may get one sensible answer back. If you ask a follow-up question, you'll get gibberish back. That is going to change quite quickly, as we're going to see in this video, which I'm going to play in a moment. In this video, on the left-hand side is a robot. On the right-hand side is somebody working in a hair salon who does not know that she's talking to a robot. We could have the video, please.
How can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now. Okay, we have a 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks. Those of you who have an Alexa will recognize that is a huge step forwards. And it's taking us into this world where we can have conversations with machines. Google demoed that in June this year. They then went very quiet for a couple of months, and then they let journalists play with it, and now they're starting to release it in very specific cities and very specific vertical applications. But this is what's coming. The other development, which is quite near term, is self-driving cars. Just last week, Google launched a commercial self-driving taxi service. So members of the public who are not Google employees and who are not signed up to NDA, so they can write about their experience, pay to subscribe to a taxi service in Phoenix, Arizona. It can only go in a certain area within Phoenix, Arizona. Most of the time there is a safety engineer in the front of the car, but sometimes there's nobody in front of the car. So these machines are quite close to being ready for prime time. GM will follow up with a self-driving taxi service next year, and apparently Addison Lee is going to launch one in London in 2021. And those of you who've driven in London will know that's quite challenging. So self-driving cars, self-driving vehicles are on their way, and we should be really pleased about this, because at the moment, we kill 1.2 million people every year around the world by running them over, and we seriously injure another 50 million. That's a holocaust which we can stop with these machines. We can also make the process of commuting a lot less painful, a lot less time spent watching the number plate in front of you. So we should be excited about this, but of course it will also bring some potential downsides, and we'll come back to that. So because of these fantastic changes, there's a huge amount of money being spent, being invested in the development of AI systems. These are the 6 American tech giants, and they spend a lot of money on R&D. Amazon spends half as much on R&D as the whole of the UK. That's all of the UK's companies, all of our universities, and all of the government agencies and organizations. Amazon spends half of that. In China, after the Sputnik moment of AlphaGo in 2016, the Chinese government decided to invest very heavily. So in China, you have the tech giants, Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent, which are there, Google, Amazon, and Facebook. But we also have the Chinese government spending vast amounts of money on AI. And here's a list of all the great European tech giants. There aren't any. Now, this is a problem. It's a problem because AI will deliver huge benefits to humanity, and Europe has a huge amount to offer. We've got great skills. We've got great computer scientists. We should be contributing. But also, we have an AI duopoly at the moment of America and China. Does Europe really want our most powerful technology to be developed entirely in the US and China? Now, the process by which machines get twice as powerful every 18 months is known as Moore's Law. It was first observed by Gordon Moore, one of the co-founders of Intel, in 1965. And some people will tell you that Moore's Law is dead or it's dying, and under strict definitions, that's true. But to boil it down, the real meaning of Moore's Law is that machines get twice as powerful every 18 months, and that is still true. It's certainly going to be true for the next 10 years and probably well beyond. So what that gives us is exponential growth. A doubling process every period gives you exponential growth. And as I say, we all know that we're in this exponential growth process, and we all forget it all the time. So let's have a little image to remind us of what exponential growth is, how powerful it is. I had the great privilege and pleasure of watching your great football team at Camp Nou yesterday. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Oriel. Not sure where you are. Imagine you're in the Camp Nou, and it's been sealed. It's been made waterproof. And the referee goes to the center of the pitch and drops 1 drop of water. And then 1 minute later, 2 drops of water. Another minute later, 4, and another minute later, 8 drops of water. How long do you think it would be until the stadium was entirely full of water? The answer is 49 minutes. But what's really interesting and a bit scary is that after 45 minutes, it's just a bit damp. 4 minutes later, it's completely full, and you and everybody else has drowned. In exponential growth, every step is equivalent to the sum of all the previous steps. So it's very powerful, and it's backloaded, and that is the growth process we're on, and that's the growth process which I believe is going to give us these 2 singularities. So I'm going to take them one in... before I start on them, this is not the 4th Industrial Revolution. Klaus Schwab, who founded the World Economic Forum and runs Davos, has done the world a lot of favors, but he's done the world a big disfavor with this idea. We are not in the 4th Industrial Revolution. What's happening is much bigger than a subset of the Industrial Revolution. We are in the 4th revolution to wash across humanity. The first was the cognitive revolution, when we learned how to communicate and collaborate. And after being a fairly insignificant species, we became the apex predator. Then we had the agricultural revolution, which was a really bad deal for individual humans, but terrific for the species, because we created food surpluses, we could specialize, we could have kings and warriors and merchants and later on scientists, and that led to creation of cities, and that led to the creation of the Industrial Revolution, which gave us control over the earth, which many people think is not such a good idea, but it's where we are. And we are now in the information revolution. So we're not in the 4th Industrial Revolution, we're in the information revolution. And the first of these 2 singularities is the technological singularity. That is the point when we create an artificial general intelligence, and that is a machine with all the cognitive abilities of an adult human. Because machines can get improved, and they get twice as good every 18 months, and that will probably accelerate, this AGI, this artificial general intelligence, will go on to become a superintelligence. And quite quickly, we will be, by a big margin, the 2nd smartest species on the planet. which is an uncomfortable position currently occupied by chimpanzees who have the good fortune that they don't know about it. Now, you might think that this is just science fiction, but actually there are two ways to create an AGI, and at least one of them will almost certainly work. The first way is we continue to develop the AI systems that we are currently working on. Deep learning will not take us all the way there. We're going to have to use an old-fashioned type of AI called symbolic learning as well, and probably new types as well. And we do not know how long it will take. We don't know for sure that it's possible. But most AI researchers do believe it's possible. And when you ask them when they think it will happen, the median view in the biggest survey that's been done was around 50 years. Some people think it'll be a lot longer than that. A few people think it will be sooner. 50 to 100 years seems a reasonable estimate. If that route doesn't work, this route almost certainly will. This is reverse engineering a human brain. So you take a human brain, to be polite from somebody who stopped using it, you slice it really thinly, and then you scan those slices down to the molecular level, and you create something called the connectome, by analogy with the genome. The connectome is the wiring diagram of the human brain. And if you instantiate the connectome in a machine, you will have something that does what brains do. What brains do is they create minds. And again, we don't know for absolute certain that this will work, but there's no reason why it shouldn't. It's an engineering problem. I mean, it's a very big engineering problem. There's 86 billion neurons in your brain, each of them connected to another 1,000 neurons. So that's a very big engineering problem. But best guess is, again, 50 to 100 years, we will achieve this. Until quite recently, I was one of a very small number of people who was thinking about this. And then in 2014, we had the three wise men moment, when Stephen Hawking, Elon Musk, Bill Gates all said, superintelligence is probably coming. And when it gets here, it will be either the best thing or the worst thing ever to happen to humanity. And I think they were absolutely right. Now, there's some journalists in the audience. I'm not going to be rude about journalists. Journalists work very hard. They're time-pressed. And good news is not news. So the result of this announcement was simply pictures of the Terminator everywhere. And why not? It's a great image. Now, the creation of Skynet, which is the story behind Terminator, a very, very powerful machine which becomes conscious, takes a look at humanity and says, I don't like you, I'm going to get rid of you. It's not impossible. But we'd have to be very stupid and very unlucky for that to happen. So let's not do that. More plausible is the idea that we create a machine of great capability, phenomenal ability, and it's just a bit indifferent towards us. It doesn't love us, doesn't hate us, but it thinks it has better uses for the atoms that we're made of. Actually, even that is a little unlikely, because we're going to work really hard to make sure these things do like us. So the real danger, I think, is this. We create a machine of phenomenal ability, and it does like us a lot, but we ask it an unwise question. For instance, we ask it to make us all happy. And it says, oh, I know how to do that. I'll put you in coffins, feed you intravenously, and pump you full of heroin. Job done. Except we wouldn't really like that. We wouldn't think that was a terrific solution. So you might think, OK, this is quite risky. Why don't we press the pause button and not make any further progress until we can figure out how to make it safe? Unfortunately, relinquishment, or pause, is not possible. The advantage of owning a better AI than your competitor is completely overwhelming, and we cannot stop it. Whether you're a company or a government or a military, you will have to develop AI as good at least as your competitor. And also, we shouldn't worry too much, because we have started to think about the big problem of how to make AI safe, how to make superintelligence safe. We've got 4 existential risk organizations, 2 in the UK and 2 in the States, working on the problem of how to make sure the first superintelligence on this planet really likes humans and understands us better than we understand ourselves. We shouldn't want to stop the progress of AI, because it can give us a really wonderful future. That group of researchers in North London I mentioned before, DeepMind, they have a 2-step mission statement for themselves and for humanity. Step 1, solve intelligence. Create an artificial general intelligence. Step 2, use that to solve everything else. And they really mean everything else. They think that if we throw enough intelligence at it, we can stop war, we can stop poverty, we can even stop death. We can create a truly wonderful future for ourselves, for our kids and our grandchildren. Imagine a world in which you could not only stop aging and not die, but you could reverse your aging. I would certainly like to do that. Imagine a world in which you could change yourself, you could change your own disposition so that you were always cheerful. In fact, you were in a permanent state of bliss and you got rid of your irrationalities, but you didn't lose the things about yourself that you valued. And imagine a world in which you could travel anywhere in the universe you wanted to. You weren't limited to the restrictions of the human body. These things would be wonderful beyond imagination, and we should try to achieve them as soon as we can. The other singularity is the economic singularity, which is, in a sense, automation. Now, automation is not new. We've had it since before the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And the great example is the agricultural industry, where in 1800, 80% of all Americans who were working worked on farms. 1900, that number was down to 40%, and now it's down to around 1%. That was an uncomfortable process for a lot of people. But it didn't cause lasting, widespread unemployment for humans, because when the machines took our manual jobs, it was mostly mechanization, we had another skill to offer. We had our cognitive ability. So the descendants of those people working in fields are in this room and in shops and offices around the world. It didn't work out quite so well for the horse. The mechanization process took away the muscle jobs, and the horse had nothing else to offer. As a result, 1915 was peak horse. In 1915, there were 21.5 million horses working in America, pulling carriages around and pulling agricultural machinery around. And today there are none. And today the horse population of America is 2 million. That is very serious technological unemployment. So, past rounds of automation have mostly been mechanization, but now we have a new type of automation called cognitive automation. Now, this isn't new. In 1974, in the blue states in this map, the most common job description was secretary. Those jobs were automated mostly by Microsoft Word. Now, the most common job description, in the states marked green in this map, the most common job description is truck driver. What is going to happen to the truck driver when self-driving vehicles become the norm? We don't know exactly when self-driving vehicles will become completely ready for prime time. They're being tested, they're doing very well, but they're not quite ready for prime time yet. And when they are, we don't also know how long it will take to change over from human-driven vehicles to machine-driven vehicles. But it'll probably be quite quick. Back in the beginning of the last century, we moved from horse-drawn vehicles to motorized vehicles. In New York, it took 13 years to make that swap. In these two pictures, they're taken on the same day, the same time, in New York City, Easter Day, 1900 on the left and 1913 on the right. And on the left-hand picture, every vehicle is horse-drawn except for one motor-drawn vehicle, and on the right, every vehicle is motorized except for one horse-drawn vehicle. So it took 13 years to make that complete shift in a major city. It's quite likely it'll be a similar amount of time here in the commercial fleet, because a human driver contributes half or more of the cost of the vehicle they operate. So we may find millennials and Generation Z don't buy cars. They will use taxi services driven by machines because they'd be very, very cheap. No humans in them. What will the drivers do if there are no more driving jobs? Traditionally, they may have worked in warehouses or in call centers. But Amazon is working very hard to automate the remaining jobs in warehouses that they haven't already automated. Already, the people working in warehouses don't walk around. They stand by a desk and the machines bring the boxes to them. They just pack them. That last bit of the chain will get automated, maybe in 5 years. Call centers, you heard earlier the Google duplex system. You can see that call centers are not going to need humans, nearly as many humans, quite soon. And it isn't just repetitive blue-collar jobs. There are machines which can carry out surgery better than human doctors. They're slow, they're a bit buggy, and they're very expensive, but those limitations will be removed. And lawyers are at the forefront of the automation of the professions. So the professions are getting automated as well as blue-collar jobs. I'm told those two slides don't work in Spanish. The thing is, machines have unfair advantages. They don't get tired, they don't get drunk, they don't fall out with each other, and the real kicker is they're getting twice as good every 18 months, and we're not. So the technological unemployment argument says that, not next year, not in 10 years, but maybe in a generation, most human beings will be unemployable, and we need to figure out what to do about that. Not everybody. We will, for a long time, still need people to make strategic decisions about organizations and about countries, and there'll be some jobs which are just too fiddly to automate, so perhaps plumbers will be the last people standing. Now, a lot of economists, and pretty much everybody running the tech giants, oddly, thinks that this is rubbish, thinks that it cannot happen. It's the Luddite fallacy, named after the people who went around smashing looms at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And it's true that in the past, automation has not caused lasting, widespread human unemployment. If it had, we would all be unemployed. But to say that because something hasn't happened in the past, it can't happen in the future is just silly. If that was true, we wouldn't be able to fly. You know, one thing that even a stockbroker can tell you is that past performance is no guarantee of future outcomes. So the idea that technological unemployment is impossible, I think, is the reverse Luddite fallacy. That doesn't mean to say it will happen. We do not know what's going to happen. So here are the questions. Will robots take our jobs? If they do, will we create lots of nice new jobs? If we don't, then what do we do about that? So will robots take our jobs? To me, the answer to this is clearly yes. We will carry on working in tandem with machines for quite a long time, but they're getting better. So in 10 years' time, with exponential growth, they'll be 128 times more powerful than they are today. And that's a lot. In 20 years' time, they'll be 8,000 times more powerful. And in 30 years' time, if something like Moore's law is still going, they'll be 1,000,000 times more powerful than today. So that human-machine partnership begins to look very one-sided. Can we create lots of new jobs if machines take all our existing jobs? Well, one idea is that machines aren't conscious, therefore they have no empathy, and therefore there are lots of things that humans can do with our empathy that machines can't. For instance, we can all be each other's nurses and therapists. But unfortunately in Japan, where they're at the bow wave, the forefront of the greying of society, they're finding that humans actually quite like being looked after by robots, particularly older people. Perhaps because you can tell a machine the same joke 1,000 times a day and it just doesn't care. So I'm skeptical about this. It could happen. I can't prove that it won't, but it could happen. The last line of defense is, well, we'll create lots of new jobs which we can't tell you about now because they'll be enabled by technologies which haven't yet been invented. The magic jobs drawer will fly open and all these great new jobs will fly out. Again, I can't prove that's not true, but it seems to me that we shouldn't be complacent. We shouldn't rely on that definitely happening. We should think about what to do if we are heading towards a world in which there are no jobs for humans. And in fact, I think the people who say that we will all be doing jobs forever, I think they're pessimists. I'm sure everybody in this room really likes their job. I'm sure you all do. You are fulfilled, it gives you meaning, you love getting up in the morning and going to work. I can tell you that out there, most people don't. Gallup did a survey that found that only about 8% of people in the world really enjoy their jobs. The others do it to put food on the table. It gives them a reason to get up in the morning, it fills their day, but they don't get meaning from it. I think a world in which machines did all the jobs could be a world in which humans do whatever we want to do. We can learn and play and explore and socialize and have fun. We could have a second renaissance. That is a great world. I think we're probably going there anyway. We should figure out how to make it work, because there are, of course, some problems. The first one that people think about is meaning. How will we all find meaning in our lives if we don't have jobs? As I say, I don't think most people do find meaning from their jobs, and there are two types of people who, to me, prove you do not need a job to have meaning. One is comfortably off retired people. And the other is aristocrats. No jobs and no apparent lack of meaning. There was no great crisis of existential despair among aristocrats. The real problem in a jobless world is income. How do we get enough resources to everybody who doesn't have a job? The answer a lot of people give is universal basic income, a payment as of right to every citizen. The trouble with universal basic income is that all the ways that have been suggested to pay for it don't work. And right in the middle of the name is a very unfortunate problem. We do not want to all have a basic income. If the best we can do in this great new world is everybody has a subsistence income, we've failed, and society will probably collapse. We have to do better than that. The way I think we can make this work, and if there's anybody in the room who doesn't yet think I'm crazy, you're about to join the rest who already do. The way I think we can make this work is by heading to the economy of radical abundance, which is also known as the Star Trek economy. That means that the prices of all the goods and services that you need for a very good standard of living fall close to zero. Not all the way to zero, because the market is a very good resource allocation mechanism, and we want to keep the market. But everything gets very, very cheap, and then we can afford to tax people who are still working and people with assets without it being punitive, so they don't hide all their money. Now, you might think this is nuts. You might think this cannot happen. But actually, in some sectors of the economy, it's already started. When I was young, it was impossible even for a rich person to have access to all the music that they might want to listen to. Now my son, for £10 a month, can listen to whatever he wants to. So all I have to do is figure out how to get him to pay for it, not me. And although that is in a digital good, I think you can see how this could happen across the economy. Take transportation. At the moment, getting in a taxi is not all that cheap. But if you take out the human driver, if you convert the vehicle to electric, so there's not lots of little explosions going on and many fewer moving parts, and critically, you make the energy source nearly free. Solar cells are on an exponentially declining cost curve. You can see how transportation, like music, could become almost free. And with almost free energy, and with no humans involved in the process, you can take that right across the economy. The economy of radical abundance, I think, is achievable. But will we get there before everybody starts to get worried about massive unemployability? I think self-driving cars may be the canary in the coal mine. I don't know if you have that expression in Spanish. I'm getting a nod from the back. Self-driving cars may be the thing that wakes everybody up and gets people to think, oh, technological unemployment really is coming. When everybody sees these robots doing a job which humans are not allowed to do until they're adults, they will realize these things are going to come from my job, and then we may get a panic. And when we panic, we vote for very unpleasant people. We really need to avoid this. The way we avoid it is we have a plan. We have a plan as to how to get from here to the economy of radical abundance, or whatever other solution there is to the jobless future. How do we get the plan? Well, Stuart Russell, one of the leading AI researchers, suggested that what we do is we get a bunch of science fiction writers and a bunch of economists and lock them in a room and don't let them out until they've come up with a plan. And I think that's a great idea. So I've started to do it. I've got a think tank called the Economic Singularity Club. They're not all locked in a room. I let them out. We are working on how we could get from here to the economy of radical abundance. And Yolanda at the back has contributed a chapter to a book that we are launching in January. This is a collection of, actually it's about 45 stories about what life may be like in 2045, during and after the economic singularity. I was hesitating about the number because some of the stories are written by an AI. Interestingly, they are rubbish, but they're quite fun, and you get a sense of place and a sense of identity in them. So we're launching this book in January. I hope you'll all buy it. It's a fantastic book. And I just want to end by repeating my claims at the beginning. We are on this exponential growth curve, this process of incredibly fast change, it's accelerating change. If we are smart and perhaps a bit lucky, we will make our world wonderful, almost beyond imagination. But we must rise to the challenges that it presents. We've started work on the technological singularity. There are these 4 existential risk organizations working on what to do about the first superintelligence. We are not thinking clearly about the economic singularity because the leaders of the tech giants and a lot of economists are telling us that it can't happen. Our politicians are focused on short-term things like Brexit, and at this point, small digression. On behalf of those of us who are not Brexiteers, I apologize for my country's appalling behavior over the last 2 years. We have been stupid and arrogant and aggressive, and I really regret it. I firmly believe we're going to have a people's vote, Brexit will be stopped, and we can start behaving like civilized people again. I hope you'll bear with us. Europe has been phenomenally patient with us, those of us who are not Brexiteers, thank you for that. If we rise to the challenges that artificial intelligence presents us, we can have this wonderful world, but we must rise to those challenges. We must take the possibility of technological unemployment seriously. We must plan for it, even if it's just a contingency plan and it never happens. And if we do that, we can really have this wonderful world. Thank you very much.
In the center. Nice? Yeah. Bueno, muchas gracias por la...
Thank you very much for your talk, for your really interesting talk. When I was preparing today's session, I watched a video clip of yours a couple of years ago when you were talking about the economy of radical abundance. You said, we will not all have this property by the beach with palm trees. And I was really disappointed because I've always dreamt of it. But then you added, but maybe we will have it in virtual reality, and then we will all have it. There are a number of questions that you have, well, the floor has given us, and we will start with that. One of them. It's like a pun. It says, 2045, Wikipedia, definition of human. Human, that species on Earth which created robots that put an end to them. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, you will have a beach house.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I like that definition. It may well be that in the great long history of the universe, our most significant contribution is to create our successors. But to give that a positive spin, what would be wonderful would be if we merge with them and we augment ourselves enormously. So again, the wonderfulness just becomes exponentially wonderful. A better definition of human, though, is an animal which can create new humans using the traditional method. And I think that is one of the least interesting things about us. Conceptually, I mean, obviously in practice it's very interesting, but conceptually it's not as interesting as our minds. Our minds are the most interesting things about us. That's what we should be preserving. If our successor species is an artificial intelligence and we can merge with it, that's where we should go.
Muy bien.
Great. Towards the end of your talk, you said, well, of course, summarizing very much, that the planet will include a number of humans that will coexist with robots, and we will have plenty of free time. We will be rich, even if prices are low, and the planet, will it be overcrowded? Will there be superpopulation? Because if robotics cures us and we live longer, and there are no diseases, we will be living in an overcrowded planet with people who have plenty of free time. Is that so?
So the overpopulation and overburdening of the Earth is a serious concern. I've got three responses to it. Firstly, what we know is that as societies get richer, they have fewer children. And we have some way to go on that. And for every reduction in the number of children you have, you get a lot of extra longevity. Children are the thing which drives population growth more than people getting older. Secondly, as you said earlier, I think increasingly we will be living in virtual reality. As virtual reality becomes as convincing to the brain as reality, people will spend a lot of time in it because it's probably better. It's probably more fun. You know, you can be Greta Garbo one day, you can be Messi the next day, you can be a space rocket the third day. Who wouldn't want to do that? And thirdly, we are talking about, you know, a few decades into the future, by which time we will be seriously colonizing other planets and maybe going beyond our solar system. We live in a very important little bit of rock, little blue speck in the universe, but it's tiny compared to all the real estate that there is out there. So there's a lot of room for us to expand.
Y en lugar de enviar a Neil Armstrong, enviaremos un robot por si acaso.
We will send robots to prepare the land for us.
El terreno.
But as I say, I think...
Pero como digo, creo que a largo plazo acabaremos fusionando.
Hay alguna pregunta para Pablo también. Se está, en este sentido, el señor Calum Chace ha dicho antes que Estados Unidos y China están generando, pues, están mucho más avanzados que en Europa. Le preguntan cómo está Europa en este sentido, si está de acuerdo con él, y si Europa al final jugará más un papel de árbitro, de poner conciencia y sentido.
The conscience and the referee in this battle between these two titans, these two colossal forces of China and the US. It is true that most of the investment in artificial intelligence is led from China and from the US as well. But if we look at scientific papers on AI in Europe, they are ranked very high up, and they are competing with these superpowers. But the problem then is, how can we extract value of what we create? I think that we need, well, more entrepreneurship, more corporations to monetize this theoretical thinking that we have in Europe. Universities are fantastic, but we need more businesses so that we can make efforts such as what was started with France or what was announced by Germany, and we will be able to start looking at AI from our perspective, where, hey, we should not forget that AI is fed off, well, feeds on data created by humans, and we need to make an economy that is sustainable. So let's hope that human intelligence and artificial intelligence will add up instead of being detracted from each other. And I think that Europe has made a fast reaction, has had a fast reaction, and has, well, intervened in a discussion that did not exist in the past, i.e. privacy, how to have, for instance, non-biased algorithms, and then data protection. For instance, with the new changes that we have all suffered with all these waves of emails about allowing everybody to use our data. And if Europe takes leadership on values and on more conscience, we will be able to have to participate in the game. Precisely talking about ethics and limits, there are a number of questions along these lines. There is a slightly provocative question. We're talking about artificial intelligence, but what about artificial stupidity? Can't it come about? What if it grows exponentially too? Where can we end up? Several people have asked this, actually.
What's a great deal of non-artificial stupidity already. sure, AI systems are very, very far from perfect. They are, in many ways, stupid. But unlike us, they're getting smarter year by year.
Pablo, ¿quieres decir algo sobre esto?
What about you, Pablo? What's your take on this? I believe that the machine's ability to be smart is relatively reduced. It's, well, similar to what a rat would be in terms of smartness. And general intelligence, which consists of perceiving certain patterns and, I don't know, planning, analogies, language, and so on, we're still 100 years away or 50 years away from having an intelligence that will be able to cope with all of this. However, we're different from horses in the sense that we humans are aware of what might happen. And therefore, we're having debates like this one. And that's where I have the hope, where we can mitigate this stupidity. Regarding ethical limits, we were seeing that image of a bulldozer. But you said that we cannot relinquish, we cannot stop. This is unstoppable. But are there ethical limits to artificial intelligence?
Yes, you can't stop the development of the technology, but you can decide, within limits, how it's deployed. We are wrestling with the issues about who should have control of our data. Should we allow the tech giants to continue to harvest our data in the way we do? Should we just stop it dead? Or should we put it in the hands of government? And we can debate all these things. We can debate about killer robots, whether we should allow machines ever to take the kill decision. But the general progress of development cannot be stopped, because if something gives you a fantastic advantage, then somebody somewhere will use it.
En relación a eso, usted dice que...
Along those lines, you said that you have set up a team of economists and a think tank to prepare a plan for the future. I've seen some of your conferences, and I've seen you being quite critical with governments and with politics, in the sense that governments are not working hard enough to prepare these plans and to prepare the future. Is that so?
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, particularly in Europe, and the country I'm most familiar with, the UK. The UK keeps saying, wow, we're investing £1 billion in AI. Germany very quietly leapfrogged that with 3 million recently and didn't make a big fanfare out of it. But both sums of money are trivial compared to what's being spent in China. There's a China researcher in Oxford who's calculated that the Chinese government, never mind their companies, is investing 420 billion in the same period. As I say, economists and most of the tech leaders are in complete denial about the possibility of technological unemployment. They may be right, it may not happen, but we shouldn't just be complacent and assume it won't happen. Politicians need to start taking this issue seriously. And the only way they will is if we all demand they do. Politicians, broadly speaking, do what we tell them to do. We tell them to do silly things like leave the EU, and they march off and try to do it, even though they know it's a silly idea. If we all demand that they take seriously the huge changes that are coming because of AI, they will wake up and start doing it.
Quien hoy igual sale es Theresa May.
Well, Theresa May might be kicked out maybe this afternoon with this vote of no confidence. Let's see if she wins or loses. But in any case, you gave a date, 2045. So my question is for both of you, Pablo and Mr. Chace. When would you say that artificial intelligence can surpass human intelligence?
My guess is roughly 70 years from now. To me, 50 years seems a little bit too aggressive. So my guess is somewhere around 2080, 2090. The 2045 date is about the time when machines are powerful enough that most humans are unemployable. Machines can do our jobs cheaper, better, and faster than us well before they become artificial general intelligences. They just need to be very good at doing jobs. which are limited. You know, jobs are only a small part of what humans do. And unemployed humans still have a lot to offer. So 2045, maybe the economic singularity. 70 years from now, maybe the technological singularity.
Bueno, las máquinas ya son mucho más inteligentes que nosotros.
Machines are smarter than we are in many ways. When's the last time we remembered a phone number or making a complex calculation? We are outsourcing our memory, our computation, and this is going to be happening faster and faster. What is currently happening is that lots of tasks are being commoditized. For instance, a radiologist's work, a machine is able to read an X-ray much faster than the human eye. However, that X-ray, that scanner, needs to be interpreted. And you need to accompany the person in the emotional journey. You need to understand research studies, what to say, how to say it, how to offer the best possible treatment. And I think this space where value, well, everything that can be automated or what requires the physical presence of a human and our attention, our time, our energy, which are limited, we will see that value will shift towards those areas that require our attention and our Chace. Alan Turing, the father of AI, used to say that in the world there are two types of problems, those solved by machines and those that machines will never solve. The issue is to pick out which is which. The only solution we have is trying and seeing if machines can solve them. But there will always be problems that machines will not be able to solve. And I think that that's where human magic will be complemented with the skills of machines to create this new intelligence. Mr. Chace said that from 2012, AI is being monetized. So that's very recently. My question is for both of you. If everything is so fast, how is that transition being faced, if that's the future you are describing?
Well, I'd say with some difficulty. You know, we're all struggling to keep up with the speed of change, and it's only going to get faster. So it's not easy, and I'm in the fortunate position I spend all my time thinking about this. Most people have jobs to do, and this is a small part of what they do. But we all need to spend more time thinking about these changes and working out how to cope with them.
Pablo?
I was born in Asturias, where there was a transition in mining. I was one of the first immigrants who left when, well, it takes 2-3 decades to close the mines. But these changes happen so quickly that we're not able, our social system is not capable, it's not built to adapt to these fast changes. It's like what happened in the Midlands, I guess. We need a new social contract where value shifts towards other activities. And the problem is transition. The problem of future jobs is not the jobs of the future, but the jobs today. And I think that AI can be part of the solution as well. Technologies can be part of the solution. So more entrepreneurs who monetize these algorithms and access to these machines so that we can take the future in our hands and help in this transition. I think that technology can be part of the solution as well. What about privacy? They say big data is eroding privacy, but privacy also erodes the opportunities that big data can bring. How can we look at this contradiction?
Yo creo que estamos en un momento donde, como decía antes, la capacidad de las máquinas de aprender depende muchísimo.
Well, at the time, the abilities machines have to learn depend on our data to a great extent. If we deny these opportunities, we won't have access to the social media, to enjoying entertainment like we do today, or to have access to free services. However, there's a very thin line between having all these services and feeling invaded. Feeling that technology is obtrusive. If we go to the other extreme, we will also feel uncomfortable. So to find a balance, we believe that the regulator and data protection laws are being implemented to try and exert a stronger control over data, so that users have more control over their data. But technologies are also offering new solutions. There are great breakthroughs in cryptography and in mathematics, and I'm sure that these will help us solve the problem of being able to analyze data and do AI without having to open the data, to look inside the data. So we will be able to work with data more anonymously. And this is going to be one of the big changes, one of the game changers. If we scientists are able to sort out these problems, it will be one of the great breakthroughs we will be able to do.
I think that's absolutely right. There are technological fixes to problems of privacy. We do need to share data. If we share our health data, we can all be a great deal healthier. So we need to find a way to do that that doesn't freak people out. Actually, people are less freaked out than the media and sort of the people who talk publicly about these things suggest. Everybody knows that they're involved in a transaction with Google and Facebook. We give them our data, and they give us great toys, which we really like. And we know that we can't sell our data to anybody else. There's no marketplace. You can take your data, take it away from Google, sell it to BP or the man next door. There's no other market for it. And we're, by and large, happy with that deal. But there are major downsides. If say, a government got hold of all of our data, it could control us in very nasty ways. Here's an interesting left-of-field thought. In a world in which a disgruntled teenager could kill hundreds of thousands of people with a bioweapon or with an AI hack, do we maintain our regard for privacy in that world? One possibility that some people think, and I'm not saying this is the way forward, I really don't know, but one possible response to that is we just have to surrender privacy because the world is too vulnerable.
Regarding this, there are some questions about the influence, the malicious influence that data can have on politics. In the last few years, we've seen how fake news have had a great influence in electoral results and in the rise of certain leaders. So, in that sense, would you say that a mistreatment of data can lead to masses of people changing the signs of elections and therefore the sign of the future political prospects or economic prospects of a country or a continent or the planet?
It's undeniable that Vladimir Putin has had a powerful and malign influence on Western elections in the last few years. I'm not sure there ever was a golden period in the past where the whole electorate in every country was really well informed and listened to all the arguments from every side. I remember before social media came along, everybody got their news in the UK from newspapers. And British newspapers are biased. In fact, it's not that long ago that The Sun used to publish naked women on page 3. So there wasn't really any golden age where everybody was fantastically well informed, and we've drifted away from that. But for sure, fake news has been very damaging. It's a problem we need to solve. I think it's soluble. Again, I think there's a technological fix. I think that machines can read the news going out on social media and apply a truth filter, apply a corrective message. We don't know how to do this yet. We don't know what form it will take, but I think it's doable.
Pablo?
Yo creo que parte del problema se soluciona.
I believe that part of the problem can be solved with technologies, as we've also solved the problem with virus with filters and antivirus, which are other kinds of virus in a way. I think transparency and accountability will be extremely important. We will see an increasing need of transparency in our digital world, where information comes from, how it was processed, the sources of information, and so on. But nobody will prevent the need for each and every one of us to develop our own criteria. And for this, we will need to learn to switch off so that we can switch back on. Twice a year, I do a silence meditation retirement period. I live in the digital technological world, and I practice this relaxation every morning. I need this space so that I can be sensitive enough to understand what's going on and to develop my own criteria so that then I can take risks and decisions in my day-to-day activities. And I think that being able to elevate our human conscience, being able to reconnect with what makes us more human is what will make us, set us apart from machines. We said we would finish at 1:45. We're not machines, we're humans, but we are complying with the time. So what do you think? Thank you very much to both of you for your really interesting comments, and thank you very much to you for your presence. See you soon.